Welcome. I'm Pamela Rickia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Liz Brady. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
So we have been connected online for a few years now, and I really enjoy reading around your blog a little bit, and I love the pictures and things that you post and the pieces of your lives that you share online. It's so fun for me just to see families in action. I am really excited that we're connecting here so that I can learn more about your unschooling journey. So, to get us started, can you share with us a bit about you and your family and what everybody's into right now?
Sure. Okay. So, our family is my husband and I, and our 4 boys. We live here in Western Australia. We are at the moment in a little town or suburb, we call it here in Australia, sort of a little further out of the sort of CBD. And we've got a really nice property with some, an extra bit of land, a pool and heaps of trees, so loads of space for the boys to run around, which is great. We moved here about 7 years ago. We bought this property, and since then we've kind of moved all over. My husband actually works for the police force, so we've moved with his work a lot, and some of the places we've moved to have been really incredible, very remote, in the middle of nowhere. You can imagine Australia's really sort of big and broad, and there's lots of remote places.
Wow.
So the boys have had some really incredible kind of adventures since they were born. Our boys, so we've got Owen, who's 10, and Liam is 8, Jack is 7, and Harry is 5. So lots of boys, and we also have 2 boy dogs and a boy cat. So I'm completely outnumbered. We did have some female chickens at one. Well, obviously we had some chickens and a female cat, but we lost her last year. So hopefully we'll get some more chickens this year.
Sweet.
It all settles down. Yeah. So a little bit about what we're up to at the moment. Owen, my oldest, he is really passionate about anime at the moment. He loves all the sort of stories and characters and anything that kind of is inspired by that. So he likes any video games that he can be the character and, get the abilities. A lot of the characters he likes have special powers and abilities, and he's always role-playing that with the boys, doing a lot of martial arts. There's always wrestling happening and, sticks flying around and that kind of thing. I think the stories in anime are so unique and interesting. And, yeah, some of them are really a little strange as well.
Yeah, no, I find that so fascinating. Like with Joseph and Mike, we've watched some anime. Joseph's found me some anime, like it is fascinating, like stuff I would never in a million years think of as a story, and they build a whole world around it. It's so cool.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So we have these like amazing kind of discussions about all these characters in the story, and he likes to research where the writers get them like sort of ideas from and motivation behind the stories. He's really into that, and as a side effect, he's kind of learning a little bit about Japanese culture and playing with learning the language and that kind of thing. So that's been really cool to sort of watch that unfolding. And he's also a really big swimmer. He loves swimming. He spent a lot of time over summer just in the pool, and when he's in the pool, he's talking and thinking. You can see his brain kind of ticking over in the pool. It's his sort of thinking place, I think, and he'll go under the water, and you can see he's thinking of the next thing he wants to do, and he's always coming up with challenges.
Wow.
He likes to get me to tie him up, which sounds really bizarre, but he gets me to tie him up and try to get him so tightly tied up that he can't escape, and drop him down the bottom of the water like Houdini. But we obviously have to do that. We obviously have to find ways to do that safely. So I'm like, we really can't completely tie your body up. That might be really unsafe. So yeah, he loves those kinds of things. And then Liam, our 8-year-old, he is sort of like our mover and groover. He's always moving, doing sort of obstacle courses, ninja sort of thing. He was the first to master the backflip, and he's on the trampoline kind of perfecting those sorts of moves. He's also really into photography. He really likes taking sort of nature photos of flowers, leaves. Today he was out there taking a really cool picture in a pipe. He sort of took the picture down the pipe, and the angle he got was amazing. I was like, wow, that looks so cool. Yeah, he's just like, oh, so creative. And he likes to take pictures of water moving. He likes like droplet sort of photography and how the water moves and how you can capture that. So that's really cool. And they're always sort of making things together, you know, in the kitchen, creating, decorating bits of food. So he has that kind of creative side to him.
So fun to see through
Jack,
their eyes, right?
I know. Yeah, they, you know, I think that's such a blessing when you have lots of kids, is, you know, seeing all their individual kind of personalities shining through each of their interests. You know, it's just, oh, lost my earpod. Yeah, so that's really cool, cool to see. And then we have Jack, who's 7. He's sort of always really loved machines and vehicles. At the moment, he loves planes. He's obsessed with planes. He's always sort of flying them around the house with really great sound effects. He's got a bit of a kind of passion at the moment for World War II planes. He really loves those, and like learning about sort of aviation history in that era. He loves to watch, you know, the movies, the documentaries, anything kind of in the war, you know, tanks and submarines and aeroplanes. He really loves learning about that. And he's always sort of building planes out of Lego, with blue tack, clay, sand, sticks, you know, anything he can get his hands on. He's really like a hands-on kind of kid, and he I think he just likes being able to see his imagination come to life, I think. You know, because he's just always got something in his hands and building something. And we've always have things go missing that we know we can just ask Jack, where's that little gadget thing? And he's kind of taken it apart and found some kind of other use for it. And yeah, he just loves taking things apart and finding little bits and pieces. So we're always kind of making areas for Jack to tinker and destroy things and then put them together and build things. So
cool.
Yeah, and then Harry, I feel like we could go on forever with this, so many of us.
We could. They're fascinating.
Oh, Harry's our baby, and he always has been really independent. He's fiercely independent. He can do everything. I can do it on my own. And I think he really likes the age that, you know, he's sort of stepping into. Oh, lost my phone. Stepping into his sort of the age that he's at, that he's kind of had like a skill leap, and he's now really able to play, really sort of engaged with his older siblings as well, that he maybe couldn't do that before. So he's really enjoying playing Roblox with them, and he's always building, or not building, but making costumes out of, he'll get me to cut up his clothes. He's making masks and helmets and backpacks, and, you know, he's got socks for gloves on his hands that we cut up, and he's just adorable. But he's very cute. And yeah, he's kind of at that age where he's, you know, asking questions about everything and, you know, what's in our body and how's this made? And, he's just a delight, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then my husband, sorry. Oh.
No, I just said, yeah, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My husband, he's also really into photography. He's a really adventurous kind of person. He loves, going to find new places to take photos and explore and finding cool things. He's kind of little niche that he's interested in is sort of nighttime photography. He takes like pictures of the Milky Way and that kind of thing. And he's really, really got quite a creative eye. And he takes Liam out sometimes, and they go and take pictures together, which is really cute. So a lot of what he's doing at the moment is sort of watching YouTube videos about how to, take the right picture and editing and everything like that. That's so involved, all the editing aspects. That I'm very confused. And then for me, I guess I'm just really loving, being at home with the boys. I kind of spend a lot of time obviously doing things with them, looking for new recipes because they eat a lot of food. They're always hungry, so I'm always kind of trying to create new interesting foods for them to eat. And we just recently got a piano. We got gifted a piano, which is really cool. So I've been enjoying playing on the piano. I used to play when I was a kid. So, I've been enjoying playing the piano and just kind of doing little things like that, writing, journaling. I do like a little bit of poetry and, just enjoying my day with the boys, really.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, thank you for taking the time for that nice long, because it's such a beautiful picture, right? You can just see everybody's personalities shining through. And like you said, they're all so individual and unique when they have this space, right, to really hone in on what they're most curious about. It's so interesting to see. And I love the tweaks, with the night photography and the stars. And it's like, oh, I love all that. It's just a reminder to me too. And I'm sure to everybody listening, like the little pieces like, oh yeah, I'm curious about that. Oh yeah, I'd be interested to dive into that. So it's so fun. And I love, like your little pieces too, right? I mean, you've got 4 younger kids. So that's a lot of time helping them and playing with them and hanging out, which is super fun. And then you're weaving in a little bit of piano here, a little bit of writing here. Like it's just a beautiful big picture of a family going through their days.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's, I think I just love that the most about hearing about unschooling families is just how they weave their own passions together with just being alongside each other. It's just, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, that's the piece. That's what shines through, right? Is the alongside each other, right?
Yeah.
Which can be so very different because, so often conventionally children's interests in things do take a back seat to what the adults need to do. But just through, your description, you can just see and feel the engagement with the kids and the love, the respect, the engagement, like all of it just shines through in how you talk about it. So that was lovely. Thanks, Liz.
Oh, that's awesome.
Goosebumps. Okay, so I would be curious to know, you discovered unschooling. How'd you come across that? And what did your family's move to unschooling look like?
Yeah, so we, I guess we kind of came to it in a sort of windy road. It wasn't really, something that I discovered at the beginning. It wasn't probably until my oldest son, he was, I think 4 or 5, and he was starting what they call here kindy. And I had looked into having 4 boys, well, at the time we had 3 boys, and, you know, knowing that boys are quite active and physical, I was already starting to look into the idea that maybe that school environment or traditional school environment wasn't sort of the best place for them to sort of thrive. And, yeah, so I started looking into alternative schooling around that time. But he did go to the little local primary school here. And I think, like, fairly early on, I started noticing sort of some changes in his emotional kind of, his behaviour and his emotions. And he just seemed really overwhelmed. And, he did really well kind of academically, but then there was a lot of sort of, the teachers said he was just rolling around on the floor and, touching everybody. And I kind of thought, maybe he needs to be somewhere where he can be more sort of physical and active. And we had like a local Steiner school here. I looked at that because what I sort of had heard about Steiner was they didn't start formal learning until they are about 7. Mm-hmm. And like previously it was more sort of play, and I thought maybe that would suit. So, I looked into that, and I went to the school, and the grounds were all really beautiful, and, there was a mud pit and there was forts and, all sorts of things like that. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Sorry, I keep losing this in my hair. So we kind of looked further into that, but at the same time we found out we were having our 4th little baby, Harry, and my husband got an opportunity to move with his work, and so we kind of thought, oh, that might be a great time, for us, because you do get a little bit more of a financial incentive when you move. Mm-hmm. So we took the plunge and we moved up north and to this remote kind of town. And, the schooling thing took a little backseat for a bit because we had a 4-week-old baby and we moved. And so we kind of thought we'd just stick with that for a little bit. And then, he went to the school, and again, there was sort of some early warning sort of signs, there was a lot of things that came up. The teacher would say, oh, he's, so interesting and he's always got all these things to say, but he never puts his hand up and he's always talking when he shouldn't be. And, it was always about sort of behaviour modification rather than like, oh, let's nurture this curiosity. And he would come home and sort of say, oh, I was really good today, I got a treat. And then another day it would be, oh, was really bad today and I got like my name on the board. And, that wasn't really a lot of the dialogue we were using at home. And I felt like he was getting this sort of impression that he was bad, because he couldn't sit still or, those kinds of things. And at the same time we were, I guess, attachment parenting with this new baby, and it seemed sort of, in such contrast to have, this older child that now we were sort of sending off to this place who, he didn't really want to be there. He was at that point starting to school refuse. Sometimes he would run off from the car or, not want to go into the classroom. So there was all these things that were kind of churning around in me that were saying, this doesn't feel right. And, everyone, there's sort of things that they tell parents at the time, oh, this is so normal and they'll get over it. It's just quieting your sort of intuition and your gut instincts and sort of telling it to be quiet. And I kind of had one last ditch attempt, and I went to see the principal. And I said, he's having a really hard time getting to school in the morning. He's like not wanting to come in the classroom. And her response was, well, with children like that, we just hold them down. And I just couldn't believe that was her answer. Response.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of left that office, went straight to the main office and just said, we won't be coming anymore. And we kind of pulled him out. And I remember him saying to me one morning when we were on our way to school, and he just sort of said, why is everyone else the boss of me? And I thought, oh, Matt, that's just so true. And it was a really big moment for me in realising that, we had to sort of change our direction in order for him to really, be who he was supposed to be. It was incredibly, empowering, and this huge sense of relief, I think, that it was okay to finally listen to my child and, trust in his own sort of understanding of himself, that, we could do this together. And so we did then pull him out, but I didn't really know anything about unschooling still. I had a Steiner curriculum because of our previous experience with Steiner, and that lasted a week because, the kids were really bored, and they were sort of waiting or trying to hurry through it to get to the fun stuff. And then when I saw, what they were learning in the fun stuff, I sort of thought, okay, we really don't need to do this. And in a respect, I think it was a Facebook group for respectful parenting, the issue of screen time came up, and somebody said, there's this whole group of people that actually don't limit screen time. And I was like, what? And she sent me a link to Pam Sarushian's article, The Economics of TV Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just was like, oh, and that kind of, I fell into the rabbit hole, and I found your podcast, and I just devoured it. I was up to all hours of the night, just listening to everything I could listen to. And it was it felt like coming home almost. I know that sounds a bit corny, but it's like this, everything you've been feeling and you're witnessing that you've been told is wrong. And then there's this place where it was all just validated, confirmed, and it just felt so amazing. I was like, oh, finally arrived.
Oh, I so remember that. It's amazing. It's like this whole part of the world was completely undiscovered, right? But that so much of it connects. It's so interesting to hear everybody's journey, because it is fascinating to see what that piece of the puzzle that opened up this world, how they found it, right? I love that for you it was that screen time question. I know for me it was doing research for a meeting with a principal, and I came across the word homeschooling. It's like, what is that? That was the first time I realized they didn't have to go to school. I literally thought you have to go to school.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating to hear that little piece. And so many times because it's our journey, that was the point at which we were ready for it, right? We may have come
and you could
before, but now is when all those pieces just come crashing together, right?
Yeah, that's right. Because any other point you could have just missed it, but it was all, this culmination of these things, and just right now you're, ready to launch.
Yeah, because I think that's why you find it. You find so many pieces make sense, because this is when you're ready for it, right?
Yeah. And we kind of, I know I later down the track sort of found an article from Sandra Dodd that said, read a little, try a little, wait and watch. And we didn't do that. I was so, so excited. I just dove completely in, and, it was a little kind of, woo, this is fun.
Fun?
But, but it was amazing. And the whole, ever since then, everything's just kind of been incredible. You know, it's not always perfect. You know, I think life is that way anyway, but it's, you know, it is just a wonderful journey we've had so far.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I mean, that is a great point. There are lots of families who also like dive right in. I keep thinking back on how we did. I think we almost mostly pretty much dove in. Basically because it's like, okay, let's take, you know, it was almost the summer, it was March break. And I just like, okay, you know, you're not going back because let's try this. Why wait now till summer? We can just start now. And so basically kind of took an early summer. So just took those few months off and just kind of called it a vacation, thought of it as a vacation. And then I was, you know, immersively, when I wasn't with the kids, I was learning and reading and all that kind of stuff about unschooling, so that eventually, for the most part, we just didn't go back. You know what I mean? After like this, our vacation, and then we just kind of but yeah, I'd love to hear more about that for you and kind of how you worked through that phase till it felt a little more natural.
Yeah, I think initially it's sort of, it feels a little bit you know, everyone's kind of, you know, doing all these things, and you know, you're just taking it all in on the side, like I was, you know, the same as you, reading and listening, and you know, as time goes on, you know, each little piece sort of comes together, and you know, the screen time sort of things just fell away, and the food, and you know, I think as the connection and trust starts to build, you know, those are kind of the key elements that kind of holds everything together. And I think the biggest sort of shift, I suppose, for me, I think conventionally, you know, everything feels very black and white. You know, there's like this sort of generational rules that are passed down. You know, you do this and you're going to get, you know, this at the end, you know, this kind of parent and you'll get this kind of child. And it's kind of all based under that assumption that, you know, you can control the outcome, or that you want to do that. And, you know, also that idea that kids don't really, you know, they're not really whole human beings. We have to kind of mold them to be what we want them to be. And I think for me, that realization that I didn't have to have all the answers, and, you know, I didn't have to be in control. And, you know, we shifted that focus from being, you know, about, I guess, the education to being about the connection and relationship. And when it was about that, you realize that every single person is part of, you know, that unit. You were all making those decisions kind of collaboratively. And it frees up so much space emotionally to have those connections when you're not like sort of kind of tied down with this idea or that dialogue that you need to be in control of everything. And that kind of really surprised me at how, you know, how wonderful that felt to be able to kind of just relax into connecting and not thinking all the time about, you know, the future and all of those sorts of things. And I think any kind of system, I guess, that functions with control as the sort of fundamental way in which it relates to people, I don't think they can function well without, you know, sort of failing the individual. I think, you know, in that sort of system, you can't really, you know, I guess for human beings, the sort of our innate kind of drive, or what we're sort of born with, is that need to have ownership over our own lives. And I think when, you know, any system that has that kind of control, you know, underlying everything, it really fails the individuals. And I think for me, that was the biggest shift, just letting go of all of that and, you know, moving towards connection and relationship as the sort of main goal. And it's sort of grown from there, and all those other little pieces, you know, the little things that come up in between, you just kind of redirect back to that relationship and connection, and yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah, I love that piece. And as I just glance at the next question, that's where we ended up, right? Because we were going to talk about the journey from traditional parenting to the more consensual and respectful relationships with your kids. And you made such a great point about that the huge piece is the understanding of the role of control and how that interferes with your connection and your relationship with them, and them just having the agency and acceptance, like to be themselves, right? To be able to be themselves versus be controlled into our version of what we think they should be, right?
Yeah, definitely. I know. I think, I think we do that to people all the time. We're always kind of, putting our ideas into them and, changing everyone's kind of direction to where we think they should go. Yeah.
No, I was having a conversation with Rocco about that same thing, last night. It's so fascinating. And to me, it's kind of, again, this is what we were talking about. To me, it's the difference between putting ourselves in someone else's shoes when we're trying to figure out what's going on versus seeing through their eyes. Like the difference between that is truly night and day, because when we think we know the right next step for somebody, because it would truly be the right next step for us. So when we put ourselves in our child's shoes or any other person's shoes, and we think, okay, if I was in this situation, I think I should do this. And then it is natural for us to want to control, to think like there's a right answer. There's a right way. Like you were talking back to the black and white, like this, your destination is, this good person, this right person, right? But from their perspective, when you take off that control piece and see what it looks like from their perspective, like with their personality, the things they love to do, the way they love to be, who they are in the world, it can be so different, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that definitely. It's amazing when you think, we just could miss that whole part if we just never let go of that, that need to control the outcome there. And
yeah, that's beautiful. All right, I think this leads nicely to the next question too. So you've got 4 younger kids, who all have their own personalities, their own things that they like to do. So I just was hoping you could share a little bit about your experience navigating everyone's needs and wishes as you move through your days. How do you approach moments where things are a bit at odds? I think people, it can be really interesting just to hear how other people are doing it, because it's just more information for us, right? More ways that we can look at a moment. So I thought that would be great.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I remember in the beginning for us, I was sort of hanging off everyone's word when they sort of talk about how, especially sort of siblings, sort of, there disagreements and conflicts and things in bigger families. And, we definitely have a lot of practice here in our house because we have so many different needs. And I think, I guess, focusing away from, everyone getting along and this sort of collective kind of, okay, we all have to get along and, we all have our, roles to play, is really just sort of honing in on everyone's individual needs. I think that for us has really, changed the way we kind of communicate and the way we kind of, work together, is working out what everyone's individual needs are in the situation, and then seeing we do that pretty much with everything, in terms of making our decisions. So down to the finances or what we're having for dinner or those kinds of things. We're always having those discussions. And a lot of the time in those discussions, people's needs will kind of conflict. We might have, usually at the end of the month, we kind of say, okay, we've got this X amount of leftover money in our budget, and how would we like to spend that? And sometimes somebody might have something particular they really want, and then another person might have something else they want. And we've often sort of had to have those discussions and kind of work together on, okay, well, maybe this month this person could get the Lego they've really been kind of wanting to get, and maybe we can put money aside for the next month for that person. And then other things that happen on a daily basis. For example, sometimes my older son, he wants to stay at home, and the younger ones want to go out. So we kind of work on, is there a way that he could stay at home, or is there a reason why he didn't want to come? So we just kind of discuss that and maybe work through pulling out some of the needs behind why he didn't want to come, or maybe what we could do to make it more interesting for him. And I think when in all of those situations, when every person feels like their needs are just as important as ours, or as a group, everyone feels kind of validated. They seem to be so much more flexible and generous with, it amazes me sometimes how they're so young, yet they're so they're just able to give and, kind of compromise and be like, oh, well, I can see that's really important to that person. And, maybe I could help, or maybe I could wait, or, and I think, that's just so amazing to watch that. And I don't think that would be the case if they always felt like their needs were in conflict with, the harmony of the family, or like they weren't, they always had to take from someone else's kind of cup to get their cup filled, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. I do, over the years looking back at it, it does feel like it's a power thing. Like when someone's feeling powerless, we need to grab for it and we need to fight for it, right? But like you said, when people feel heard and understood, right, then they don't have to grab for that power. It's like, okay, they know me. We're all trying to work this out together. And like, you're right. It's so hard at the beginning to open up conversations with our kids, I think, because at first we're so worried, that there's going to be so many demands, and that we aren't going to be able to meet them, and that it's going to take so long to talk through and everything. And it takes a while to get to the place where the kids feel that they feel empowered to be themselves, and they trust that they're going to be heard and understood. And even if it doesn't go their way, like you said, it's just amazing where they get to that ability to understand each other and compromise and find a path forward. It's because they trust that when something's super important to them, and we've shown them through previous experience that we're going to go out of the way to make sure that it happens for them, like it's so beautiful when everybody gets to that place, isn't it? And then sometimes, like you said, we have harder months. A lot of things go wrong and we really need that cup filled or whatever, but they see us in action and doing our best to fill that cup for them. So that's what I mean. When power gets out of the equation, it's amazing what replaces it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just see, like how you say, how empowered they feel, in that moment to be able to come forward and, like, oh yeah, I can really be a part of this, and, I'm an equal member in this whole team, and, you know, just as little as sort of 5 and 7, and they're just, you know, coming up with all these wonderful ideas and, you know, being able to, you know, I just think, oh, this is amazing. And like you say, you know, it doesn't always go that way. And there's times when, you know, there are sort of limitations that come up, and then, you know, just knowing that, you know, like you say, when needs come, that, and you just try your best to make that happen. And whether it's, you know, you find another option or find another solution that's maybe not exactly what they started out with, but, you know, you can see them go, ding, mummy's kind of, this is cool.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, when they, you know, there's that level of trust, so that, you know, if it's something specific that they're really wanting, but we're working with them for a plan to get there. It may not be immediate, but, you know, we're working with them for that plan. Or, you know, we come up with another idea. It's like, well, if you really need it faster, there's this alternative that is almost there. But, you know, just that you're working with them and trying to figure it out with them. It's that whole team. Like, I feel empowered because I've got the power of, you know, my parents and my family behind me trying to help figure out a path that will work for me, right?
Absolutely. And I think I remember hearing that from you, Pam. I think, you know, like you say, that sort of dance in the beginning, I think, you know, initially you feel almost like you're just throwing all this power at everybody, like, okay, you know, you can do this and you can do that. And it feels that way. And then it's sort of a shift from, it's not really handing over power, but like you say, it's sort of giving them their own power to kind of, you know, shine. And it's really cool when that kind of shift comes and you're in that sort of space.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point, because I think when we first come to unschooling, it can feel like as parents we're handing power to them. But that, to me, that means like there's a limited amount of it. And that feels like we're giving up. But no, it's, you know, it's power. It's more than the sum of its parts. You know, if we all like share it and it just kind of goes where it needs to go. And the other really cool thing is, and I'm sure you found this too, is that what each child needs from us, like that's another piece, kind of that fairness piece, right? You know, if I worry I'm spending a lot on the needs of one child because they're wanting lots of things for a while or something, and another child isn't really wanting things, but you notice maybe they're wanting a lot more time, maybe they're wanting a lot more interaction, maybe it's a lot of watching them in the pool because they want to swim a lot, or maybe it's role playing a lot, or watching shows with them a lot. And it's totally okay, because then you're meeting the needs of each child. They don't have to be measured, other than the sense that they feel loved and connected and supported. Right. So and it just goes over time. It goes through phases. Sometimes someone needs more money, sometimes more attention, sometimes more this or that, or whatever, wherever they happen to be in the moment. Right. I got goosebumps again, because it's so fascinating. Just individual people at play. Right. And they're people.
Exactly. Yeah, it is really cool. And I know with my, you know, having sort of younger ones, like you say, sometimes, you know, it is more a physical kind of, you know, being beside them, and, you know, the play and kind of helping them with a lot of things. And then, you know, Owen, my older son, he, you know, he went through a stage where he was really just loving online gaming with friends, and he was doing that like a lot. And, you know, he was just so animated and talking, and, you know, there wasn't much time in that space for me to sort of sit next to him and have a chat, you know, because he was like, Mom, I'm doing my stuff.
Yeah.
But for him, it was, you know, like he was, so happy when I was bringing him, you know, his favorite food, and, you know, oh, pizza, Mom, you're the best, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know, and that was kind of filling his cup so that he could continue doing what he was, you know, loving at the time. And like you say, if everyone's just sort of getting their cups filled, and, you know, it changes over time all the time.
Yeah, I think that's why I love the word flow. right? Because it
Oh, yeah.
used to be a nice metaphor for the days, because it over time it does flow different phases, it changes for people, but to be able to help keep them in their flow too, like the bring in pizza and everything,
Yeah.
you notice the little pieces and just try to flow with them, and everybody flowing together in the bigger picture too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just awesome.
One other thing that I wanted to touch on, which I think fits in here nicely too, is the idea of productivity. I think that's something that as we're deschooling too, that's another big piece, because the idea of being productive is so pervasive, isn't it? But
Oh, yeah.
it's everywhere, and I mean, and now in this the pandemic time where a lot of people are at home, I see a lot of messages about, oh, you can use this time to do this, that, and the other thing, which is cool too, but
Yeah.
it's so individual as well, right? There's so much value in not not even looking through the lens of productivity, rather looking through the lens of ourselves as an individual and where we are, and what we are um, feeling like we want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
Or just be. I
Oh,
love
it does. Yeah.
do and be. That's a huge thing too.
Exactly. And I agree. I've seen so much of that online recently, and yeah, it's such a huge push for everyone to be on the same trajectory of, we're all doing this and we're all, learning this new skill. And like you say, it's cool if that's, what's coming from within you and that's what you really want to do. But yeah, we're all sort of individual, and, that need to really sort of kind of always be self-improving ourselves, just like you say, it's everywhere at the moment. And I think for us initially, when we started unschooling, I was really looking at what they were doing still through that lens of, like an educational kind of point of view, and like teasing apart what they were doing and kind of still evaluating it in a sense. Because I guess initially that was helpful for me, because it helped me to shift from seeing learning through this kind of school lens and now into life. But when we shifted, further away, and kind of went further along in our journey, it sort of shifted again to be, it was just, we're all in this together, sort of supporting each other's interests, and whatever it happened to be at the time that we were interested in, whether it be like for Jack digging in the sand for hours and looking for rocks, or watching a YouTube video or a photography blog, or gaming with friends. It's all so meaningful to that individual at that time. It's what they're choosing to do. And I think it's so ingrained in that school and work culture that, you're always having to prove your worth, or sort of provide some kind of product to show that you are kind of value in, in society. And I think that trickles into our relationships with kids, because I've seen so often that they learn to filter themselves. They know what gets our attention, and what doesn't. And, they're always sort of looking for that thing that's going to give them that validation and approval. And, I think when you start looking outside yourself for that gauge of, acceptance and approval, that's, where your innate purpose sort of. Are you there, Pam?
Yes, I am. Hey, you said
Oh, just went off.
that's where their innate purpose.
Yeah, your innate purpose kind of like, it's really impacted, because you're looking, now you're looking outside of yourself for, validation. And for unschoolers, I think, and, I feel like we, are living day by day more intentionally, and that, that sort of our choices. We're always evaluating our choices, and there's no shame in kind of letting something go or not, or quitting something. Oh,
there we go.
we still there? Oh.
Yeah, we'll
there we go.
There we go. Yeah, no, I think that's such a great point. You had so many cool insights in there. Like, one thing that jumped out at me was, versus the trying to look externally for that validation, like to get that piece. You mentioned what they're choosing to do is meaningful to them. I think that I loved that word, that meaningfulness, because it is about our internal aspirations, the things what we're curious about, just what we are trying to accomplish, and finding ways to validate those for them rather than the accomplishment of them. Like, get excited with them about what it is that they're loving, what it is they're trying to do, versus judging how well they do it in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't matter if they're just sort of, like you say, just, loving, learning about something. That doesn't have to be some kind of end result or something that we can sort of tick off a box. Oh, you did that really well. Or, you learned a new skill. It's just whatever's meaningful to
too,
them
as parents, right? Because that is the way most of us, the vast majority of us, have grown up, right? Is by producing things and having them judged, versus just exploring, like at that other piece that you added about quitting things because we lose in. Like, that's amazing. And it's so easy when you're looking at what they're aspiring to do and working with them from that point rather than the end point or the production of something, right? Because then often you see the threads of how they went from here. Oh, that I didn't enjoy that as much as I thought, or no, I don't want to go back to it, and then moving on. But you can start to see them honing in on what it is that they're curious about, right?
Yeah. And they're sort of building that trust in themselves as well, that they, they can make those choices, and they, they're sort of, building on that every time they kind of change their direction. It doesn't feel like a failure or a loss or anything like that. And I could see that when they make that choice, there's never any sort of, emotional attachment in terms of, oh no, that's not good that I did that. It's just, okay, next thing.
I love that because they naturally, which is why I always end up looking back at my kids as an example for me, but they're naturally about what it is that they're curious about or what it is they're aspiring to do versus the outcome, right? Like, that was one thing I was always amazed at, that when something didn't go as, that's our lens, as we expect it, or we think that they're trying to accomplish, and we think, oh no, they're going to be so disappointed that it didn't work out. So and sometimes they are, but I just loved watching them and continue to, because for them, that was just so often just another piece of information, and they would process through the disappointment and then keep going. I'm like, damn, I would have given up. But no.
Yeah, I want to be able to do that too. Sometimes you feel like you're holding your breath. Oh, what's going to happen? And then,
oh, geez, no, that wasn't the end of the world. Yeah, very nice. I know, because making mistakes was such a big thing. Like, I learned quickly mistakes are bad, mistakes are wrong. Like, I would try to cover up mistakes and hide them and didn't want people to see them. I'd be so ashamed of that. Yet watching my kids was so different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool that they get to, just be themselves, and there's no sort of wrong or right to that.
Yeah, I love that. So I would love to know, what is your favorite thing about your unschooling lives and days right now?
I actually realized I didn't even look at this question. Well, I think because it was probably the easiest one to answer, really, I think, just that I think for us right now, especially everything that's happening worldwide, just feeling so grateful for our journey so far. And I feel like we've already kind of been preparing for this for the last little while, just being able to be together every day and just enjoying, learning alongside each other, and, that relationship piece as well, just being with each other. And, with, I guess, having a few of us in our family, there's so many different relationships that we have going, and, everyone is unique, and, the conversations are unique, and, I just feel really grateful.
Oh, wow. That's lovely. That's lovely. Well, thank you so much, Liz, for taking the time to speak with me. It was so much fun to hear more about your guys' stories. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Pam. And thank you so much for having me on today, or this evening, or this morning.
Yeah, exactly. Wherever you are.
Yeah, it's been lovely talking to you. All the little power cuts and things.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's awesome.
It was fun.
Thank you. And before we go, where can people connect with you online?
I think probably Instagram or Facebook. I have those two pages. I don't really post too much, but just some pictures here and there. So at Unschooling the Bradys is the Instagram page, and the same for Facebook. It's just Unschooling the Bradys. Awesome. The Brady Bunch.
The Brady. Yeah, no, that's perfect, and I'll put links to those in the show notes as well. Have a wonderful sleep. You're probably going to bed soon.
Yeah. I'll probably need a little while to sort of relax now and before we go to bed.
That's wonderful. All right. Bye.
And you too, Pam. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.